Weeding out a problem by dealing with it from the surface is an effort in vain, but identifying the problem and dealing with it from its root cause is dealing with it amicably. Ladies and gentlemen, and so we've gathered here today to dramatize yet another appalling condition, and that is to strongly lift our lost nations from the quicksand of lack of understanding and unto a solitude of brotherhood, union, and peace. But by so doing, not being myopic in our approach like a blind man wearing dark shades looking for a black cat in a dark room, but rather being systemic and strategic in our thinking and in our approach, like the wise chief that sent out 6 blind men to go and identify for him a creature within the village center, only later for them to come back to him with dynamic and complex answers in which he saw some interrelatedness in and put together and harmonized, and was able to conclude that indeed the creature within the village center was an elephant. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the General Assembly present here today, protocol is highly observed. My name is Thabiso Mashaba from the Global Masters in Development Practice program at the University of Botswana, and I'm also co-founder of the worldwide social enterprise known as These Hands. Ladies and gentlemen, it was with great pleasure and an honor by the invitation of Mr. Matthew Dean that I come here today to take you back on a track back session where we will identify our journey towards the sustainable development of Africa, Latin America, and the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the World Bank report of 2012 currently ranks Mexico at 58th and currently ranks Botswana at 61st based on their gross domestic products. Ladies and gentlemen, on the ground though, it shows that Botswana has since independence experienced great economic growth and poor economic development with regards to gross domestic product per capita and GDP per capita triple P in Botswana being last recorded at 4377.56 US dollars and at 14752.70 in 2011 respectively. The GDP per capita in Botswana is equivalent to 35% of the world's average. Historically, from 1960 up until 2011, Botswana GDP per capita averaged 1968.31 USD, reaching an all-time high of 4377.56 USD in December of 2011, and a world record low of 24977 USD in December of 1960, according to the World Bank report of 2012. Economic development exists when a country, compared to others like it in the region, has managed to grow the economy away from primary dependency to that one that will be driven by secondary and tertiary industries. Ladies and gentlemen, Botswana, compared to others in the Southern African region, is performing poorly in economic development as it is still largely dependent on the primary industries of mining, agriculture as her main contributors to government revenue, and has failed to develop the secondary and tertiary industries plus also create jobs in the private sector as government is still the greatest employer to date. The costs of production for private companies are still too high, and they do not have the necessary markets locally and regionally and even internationally, and thus cannot make the necessary profits to create jobs as they expand. Based on a comparative measure of life expectancy, literacy, education, and standards of living for countries worldwide, Botswana has a Human Development Index of 0.633 and is ranked 98th in the world, signifying medium human development for a country of its economic status based on GDP growth, especially compared to small countries like it, which are Mauritius in the same region, Taiwan, and Singapore internationally. Botswana's National Development Plan goals, which are packed and closely driven by the pillars of her Vision 2016, are to ensure economic growth, reduce poverty, and create employment. We can successfully then point out that so far Botswana has managed to succeed on the economic growth goal, but has failed on the other two, based on the 35% unemployment rate of the youth and the Human Development Index. This therefore validates criticism of government policy that the state should take a more activist role and induce entrepreneurship rather than wait for applicants to take the initiative. The diamond trading company setting up in Botswana and the development of cutting, sorting, and processing companies in Botswana can be seen as some form of economic development, though it is still aligned to the diamond mining sector. In so doing, the government of Botswana may argue to date to have come up with initiatives like private sector development strategy in partnership with the Voice of Business, being Botswana Confederation of Industry and Manpower, and a Youth in Business high-level consultative committee that meets with the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture twice every year, which I sit on, to advise on high-level red tapes that hinder industrial growth or opportunities for youth-owned businesses, the Youth Development Fund, Citizen Entrepreneurial Development Agency, a local enterprising authority, a revived Department of Cooperatives under the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and the National Human Resource Development Strategy headed by the Human Resource Development Advisory Council, which I also sit on. Through successive development plans since NDP 7 or 1997, the importance of developing Botswana's human resource development capacity has been a first-line priority, and from a broad range of perspectives, whether be it educational attainment, skills and training, quality of life issues, or the expansion of labor market, and considerable progress has been made, but still a lot needs to be done if we are to create the necessary perfect knowledge for the stakeholders, to be done such that all can have an educated and informed nation that will effectively or actively participate in the economic development of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, and to you especially, more especially the youth, I would like to urge you that unlike others who are willing to just sit under trees or complain elsewhere, we should be of difference. We need to realize and appreciate the people, planet, and profit-centered nature of sustainable development. We need to appreciate culture as a fourth pillar of sustainable development, as culture can be defined as values, as culture can be defined as civilization or day-to-day practices within business, within society, within households, or as culture can be defined as arts and heritage, which can be turned into entrepreneurial opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, for the 6 years of my life, I have been going at it with my government through the HLCC committee that I sit on and through the Human Resource Development Advisory Council that I sit on, to try and advise both from an HR point of view and from a private sector point of view how we can best go about recognizing the cultural and creative industries of Botswana as creative catalysts that can best drive our economies forward. Why say this? The creative and cultural industries, besides the fact that they allow us to be able to tap into the values of our societies, besides the fact that they are part of a knowledge-based economy, are central to being the pillars or the fourth pillars of sustainable development, in the sense that through arts and heritage we can come up with entrepreneurial opportunities for our societies, which can then be used to provide jobs for people, which can then reduce government being the main employer of our people, and can see private sector take its role of driving economies of our world such that they can be able to also expand, making the necessary profits and create the necessary jobs for our people. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our onus and our active role for us to realize as the youth that we are the cultural capital that this world needs, in order for us to be able to communicate with the households through a form of education, make them understand policies, market practices, and explain to the markets, make them get to understand the role that they can best play in helping the households, and obviously be the linkage between the government and the households or the society, in as far as helping the government satisfy the social welfare of these particular households. And how do we best go about that? There are certain and few key tools that we need. The first key tool that you will need probably of late, which has been developed in partnership with the United Nations, is a gapminder.com, which has all the statistics in the world, which you can be able to compare and contrast with countries across the world, some within the same ranking, some with not the same ranking but in the same region. Then you will need to follow the design process, which takes you through, establishing a criterion, doing a prototype, testing and implementing that prototype, and coming up with an appropriate technology that will best be used by a society that is either in Mexico or in Botswana or anywhere else across the world, by way of local adaptation of skills and knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, another tool we definitely will need is a lot of data that will go in as far as helping us to understand the persistent issues of the world, so that we may be able to track these patterns and are able to know that if this is a persistent issue, that no matter what we do to intervene, keeps coming back to reinforce positively, then indeed we are going about dealing with it in a wrong way. If the possible tie to HIV/AIDS could be climate change, such that because of no rainfall due to climate change, people leave rural villages and go to city centers with the hope of finding jobs such that they can be able to find the necessary income to feed themselves, which they never find. And then they move into shanty towns where they start drinking alcohol every day, engaging in drug activity, and eventually ending up engaging in sexual intercourse that is unprotected, and eventually incurring or being infected with the HIV/AIDS scourge. Ladies and gentlemen, these are things that we need to really assess and see for their interrelatedness, and be able to come up with a multidisciplinary approach that will include or will be driven largely by the youth as the brothers and sisters to the unborn or to the young, or as the daughters and sons of the old that are currently in power, such that tomorrow we can be able to lead the world towards that sustainable development goal agenda that it has set for itself. Ladies and gentlemen, with those few words, I would like to urge you all to wake up and realize what time it is, and know that the whirlwinds of revolt shall continue to shake the foundations of our nations until that bright day of conquest shall emerge, when we do get to realize that the commonalities of our human bond far transcends all these superficial differences, and it is time we act and understand issues for what they are and address them for what they really are, and keep in mind that people, planet, profit, but with a dose of culture, we can be able to see this world change to a better place. Thank you and welcome to the 5th Union and Peace Summit. Do have a great time.